What's up everybody, my name is Daniel, and welcome to the Week 10 Waiver Wire. Before we start today, I have two exciting announcements. First is that we have an Instagram account now. If you're on IG, come follow me at DZ Fantasy Football. I'll be posting stream and video upload updates on there, as well as any breaking or important news that affects fantasy football. Number two is that we just hit 150 subs this last week. I want to give a big thanks to all of our recent followers, as well as all the OGs who's been here since day one. Without further ado, here's your list for week 10. Starting with our quarterbacks, we have Tua Tagovailoa. I told you all to pick him up a couple weeks ago, and I hope that people didn't drop him after his bad week last week. We're finally seeing what Miami is capable of, and Tua's gonna have some real value as both a passer and a runner. He scored just over 20 points this week, and I don't think he's reached his ceiling yet. If he's still out there, he might be the only guy left that has QB1 potential for the rest of the season. Next up is Derek Carr. He's been mediocre in the last couple of weeks, but I do expect him to bounce back against the Denver's defense that's stingier against the run. I had him as someone who has a solid floor every week, so I'm really hoping the last 2 weeks were just outliers. Nick Mullens this week had a pretty bad game against Green Bay, but he still managed to put up almost 300 yards. Based on just the eye test, he looks like a mini gunslinger. Teddy Bridgewater finally bounced back by putting up close to 30 fantasy points this week. I predicted that his stock was going to go up after Christian McCaffrey came back. And as we saw this weekend, he looked to and connected with CMC 10 times. The Panthers have a lot of versatility on that offense with their players, so as long as everyone stays healthy, I see Teddy Bridgewater as a top 10 quarterback for the rest of the season. Lastly is Drew Lock. Even though it was against Atlanta, he went off this week for almost 30 fantasy points. This is his second straight game with at least 19 fantasy points and 3 touchdowns. He's not as consistent as I would like him to be, but he's got a really favorable matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders this week. For deeper stashes, look to Jake Lutton, Nick Foles, and Alex Smith. Next up, let's talk running backs. I want to bring up JD McKissic once again. With Kyle Allen going down with a gruesome injury this week, we now have the ultimate checkdown king, Alex Smith, as a starting quarterback for Washington. This is going to benefit McKissic tremendously as he had 14 targets and 9 receptions this past weekend. To everyone's surprise, Kalen Ballage was a guy to lead the Chargers backfield after Justin Jackson went down. Keep an eye out for JJ's injury, but I liked what I saw during the game, and I love the narrative of a revenge game that he has coming up. Another guy who's benefited from their starter getting injured is Gallman. This is his 3rd straight week with a touchdown. As long as Devontae Freeman is out, he's a very solid flex play. Contrary to popular opinion, I actually think Gus Edwards is a more valuable back right now in the Ravens backfield. Him and J.K. Dobbins seem to split carries evenly, but he's the one that's getting more looks in the end zone. That backfield is really messy, especially with Ingram coming back soon, so keep an eye on that situation. Lastly is Tony Pollard. He looked pretty good this week. He had less carries than Zeke, but he outran him 57 yards to 51 yards. With rumors of Zeke being potentially injured, he's a top tier handcuff with some flex upside. If Zack Moss, DeeJay Dallas, or Giovani Bernard are available in your league, go add them immediately. Some deeper stashes to look at are Devontae Booker, Duke Johnson, Ryan Nall, Jordan Wilkins, and Alfred Morris. Next, we have wide receivers. I've been talking about this guy for 3 weeks now, and if he's still somehow on your waiver wire, go get him, and that's Curtis Samuel. It's apparent that he still has a role on the team even with McCaffrey back, and his versatility makes him really dangerous. This week, he had 60 snaps, 12 touches, and scored 27 fantasy points. Over the last 3 weeks, he's averaging 17 plus points per week and has been outproducing both Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. Next up is Allen Lazard. If you haven't stashed him yet, this is going to be your last week to pick him up. We expect him to be back this week and look to him to be that wide receiver 2 across from Devontae Adams. Next up is Nelson Agholor. Aside from a dud in a windy Cleveland game, he's been solid the last 4 or 5 weeks and has scored in each one of those 4 weeks. I like him better than Ruggs from a fantasy perspective. With T.Y. Hilton out this week, Michael Pittman looked like he could be the wide receiver 1 for the Indianapolis Colts. He tied in team high targets with 7, but had the best production with 4 receptions for 56 yards. Look for him to build upon that and potentially become a solid fantasy wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season. Lastly, we have Jalen Reagor. It's obvious that Philly wants to involve him a lot as he was used in both the passing and running game. Even though Jeffrey's coming back soon, I see Reagor as someone with a lot of potential to be a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season. If Christian Kirk or Brandon Aiyuk are still available in your league, go pick him up immediately. Some deeper stashes include David Moore, Jakobi Meyers, Darnell Mooney, Tim Patrick, Richie James, and Alshon Jeffrey. Next, we have tight ends. With a new quarterback comes a resurgence of Dalton Schultz. He tied in team-high targets with 7 this week and could be a good security blanket for Gilbert moving forward. Next up is a really interesting one, and that's Taysom Hill. Even though he had production this week because the Saints were blowing out the Bucs, he's one of the most versatile gadget players in the league with his ability to both throw, catch, and run. He does have a low floor, but I think it's very comparable to the tight ends that are left in free agency right now. His ceiling, however, is a lot higher than these tight ends, so I think he's definitely worth a look at. Austin Hooper was one of Baker Mayfield's favorite targets and should be returning this week after missing a few games due to an emergency appendectomy. With him being inserted back into the Browns offense, he should have a very solid floor moving forward and could be a top 10 tight end for the rest of the season. Lastly is Dallas Goedert. I understand that he had a bad game last week, but he should still be one of Carson Wentz's favorite targets moving forward. Even though Wentz is going to get a lot of weapons back, I still see his target share being somewhat high. For some deeper stashes, we can look to Jordan Smith, Logan Thomas, Irv Smith, and Jacob Hollister. Lastly, let's talk about defenses. If you weren't able to stash the Eagles like I told you 3 weeks ago, try and see if you can pick them up. They have a really favorable matchup against the Giants this week. Daniel Jones is very turnover prone, and the last time that the Eagles played the Giants, they were able to put up a solid 9 points. The Packers play the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. Even though Jake Lutton looked pretty decent last week, I expect this game to go pretty similar to the San Francisco game last week where the Packers got up ahead and they forced the other team to really throw and make bad decisions. The Saints embarrassed Tom Brady and the Bucs in primetime this past weekend. I don't think anyone really expected that, but if they're able to put up a solid 16 against Tampa Bay, I'm more than comfortable starting them against a 49ers team that's decimated across all positions. Lastly, I talked about the Dolphins last week, and man, they look good against the Cardinals. Even though they only put up 5 points, you gotta remember this is one of the top offenses in the league. Even though they're facing the Chargers this week, I would feel comfortable starting them over many other defenses that's left on the free agency list. After this, they have 3 juicy matchups against the Broncos, Jets, and Bengals. That's it for my positions. Here's your full list of players to pick up, as well as deep stashes. Let me know your thoughts, and hopefully the video from last week was helpful. I want you to like this video, share it with all your buddies, and comment down below if you have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe so you get notification on all of my uploads, as well as when I go live on stream. We hit 150 subs in less than a month, so let's go for 500 by the end of the year. The stream time for tonight will be pinned in the comment section below. Thanks everyone, good luck on the waiver wires, and until next time.